United, WFC.
Good evening and welcome to the AFU United Women's Football Chat Show with me, Matt Crane. Good show lined up for you tonight. I've got two guests joining me. I've got Gareth. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. And as well, welcome to the show. We've got you, Corie Mather. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Tired from work, but what's new? We'll get there. So tonight then, we're talking a little bit of everything. We've got, obviously, Corie, you play for FC United Women, so we're going to chat about your career. You came through the RTC system at Man United, so we'll discuss that as well, because people love sort of hearing about sort of football and journeys. We'll chat a little bit on sort of growing the women's game and sort of perceptions and opinions about that and how we can sort of improve that. And we'll speak about FC United as a club as well, obviously, as a whole, sort of since you've been there. We'll start off then. I'll let you obviously explain the very start. So obviously, do you want to just talk a little bit about your journey? So how you first started football, obviously sort of prior to the RTC.
Yeah. So it's a bit of an odd one really because I'm one of four girls. So I've got three elder sisters and they've never done anything like this. Like one was a dancer, one liked singing, other one didn't really do anything. And then I came along and from being very young, I was always into like football. Then obviously being four girls, my dad pretty left out having four girls. He always wanted a son, never got a son. So he was a bit out of it there. But my eldest sister, she was quite poorly and she always got me into like getting out in the garden, playing football. She loved football. She used to go to United days and like do tours around the stadium. She met all of the players. And I used to go on them days with her. So that was a big thing for me. And then one day my mum and my sister were there and I was like, I want to play for a team. And I think I was like 5. And they said, well, do you know any teams? And a couple of the boys from my school had been talking about Sale United. And that was literally down the road from my house. So I went down there and like they were like, oh, a girl playing football on a boys team. Well, when I was younger, it didn't really happen. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I joined, went for a trial and then they offered me to go and start playing with them. So that's where I started out. I started out with Sale United when I was about 5 and then was there till I was about 8 or 9 playing with the boys.
Yeah. So in terms of that, and how did you find it? Because obviously like back then, obviously, I mean, it's improving now, but obviously not many sort of girls teams around them. Was that sort of maybe like a bit of a daunting thing? Because I can imagine sort of, you know, you usually you hear the typical sort of comments and things, don't you? But how was that as an experience? Or did it kind of sort of push you to like, you know, well, I'm going to actually show them and sort of work hard and be better?
Yeah, obviously when I was like 5 or 6, there wasn't really anything like that because you're all too young. Then as I was getting older, the boys, basically I was better than the boys and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
So it came to the point where none of them would pass me the ball because I'm not passing to her because she's a girl. All that came into it. Yeah. Which actually, when I was 8, stopped me from playing football because at the time there wasn't many girls teams around. So United didn't have a girls team at the time. And I didn't want to play carrying on not being passed the ball and stuff like that just because the boys didn't like it.
Yeah.
So you kind of came through the RTC at Man United. So how did that opportunity come about, sort of getting the trial and going into that?
So I played for City for a couple of years for their like it wasn't academy at the time. I just played for their like grassroots. And then I got an opportunity to go for a trial with the RTC at United and I think I was about 13, 14. And that was a mad experience. Like that was, I just couldn't believe that I'd been offered that to go. Like, and you can imagine my dad is a massive red. So he was absolutely buzzing with it. I went down to the trial and it was like nothing I'd seen before. The setup, everything, like it was unreal. And then at the end of the trial, one of the coaches, can't remember who it was, went over to my dad and was just like, we want to offer her a place, but she's going to be the youngest girl on the team, so there might not be much opportunity for her getting a lot of game time, but we want to develop her. So obviously I took it because I think you'd be silly to turn it down. And that was how I got into the RTC.
So thinking about obviously being at the RTC, then you were saying it was big experience and things like that. Sort of learning from that, then obviously a very competitive environment, sort of being Man United. What did you take from that? Obviously you talked about developing yourself, but what was maybe your biggest sort of learning points and things that helped you sort of really kick on from that then being there?
I couldn't really tell you. I mean, I was there for about a season, and then unfortunately I got in the same season, I broke my wrist and I broke my tib and fib in my leg. So that kind of knocked me out because I was completely out then for a full season, and that obviously happened to me in the season. But the coaches, when I broke my leg, Kristen, the physio, she came down to the hospital, she was supporting me there. I had so much support and everything from the club, that was just massive for me.
Yeah,
at the
absolutely.
time,
I think.
I was say at the time, United didn't have a senior team. Was that anything that kind of came into your mind when you were kind of there and training, as there's no kind of route straight into first team football, or was it not anything that you kind of even considered?
It was something that I thought about, but it wasn't anything that I was too worried about because there was always talk that there's going to be this, there's going to be that. And obviously it didn't happen when I was there, but now look at it, it's up and running and you've seen it now and it's absolutely massive. So
yeah, I think it's like you say, it's been a long time coming because obviously you think of sort of the players there back, sort of 2018, obviously when it came back. Prior to that, there was so many players that you think, what a team there could have been, think the likes of Izzy Christiansen, people like that. And it's sort of a shame in the way, but I think it probably helped because of what it did was it developed a lot of players and then it's enabled them to go and have careers elsewhere. So even though you've kind of not got to everybody else hasn't got to where it is now, the fact that you've had sort of that, elite high level coaching, you can see that every single player has gone on to have some sort of career, whether that be, Championship, National League, WSL. And I think that that's something that, you can't sort of replicate because obviously not every club has, similar facilities and things like that. I want to sort of move it on to after United then. You went to Blackburn Rovers, didn't you?
Yeah.
Obviously, do you want to sort of discuss that then, obviously, because that was, your next sort of big move, wasn't it? Talk me through that then.
I was at Blackburn and I was on the development team at Blackburn. And that was, again, another massive move for me. My biggest experience with them was traveling to Texas. So we went to Dallas to play in the international cup, and we ended up winning it. And we at the time we were the first team to have won it. So that was massive for me. That was a massive push, a massive confidence boost. I loved it at Blackburn. It was such a good team to be a part of.
Yeah. How did you find the step up then from the RTC to the development? Because I'd imagine there's quite a bit of a gap in terms of just everything, just the training, the intensity, the matches and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Training. So I think the RTC I was 2 times a week. Then going up to Blackburn, it was 3 times a week. And at this point, I was travelling up there myself, driving. It was a lot, especially with, at the time, it was college. There was a lot going on. I was tired all the time. But it was a lot. But I really did enjoy it. So on a Tuesday night, we'd do, training session. Wednesday would be in a gym. Thursday, training session. Game on a Sunday. So it was a big step up. And then even on the pitch, I struggled a lot with the physicality. I wasn't very physical when I came from the RTC, and that was something that I did struggle with. But doing the gym sessions and stuff like that, it did massively improve me and my game. So
yeah. Gareth, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I was kind of interested in how you were able then to balance being at college and playing in all the training and stuff as well. Like, was it just a case of the fact that you were enjoying the football and so just found it easier to make the time to be able to balance those things, or was there anything else in particular that you did to do that?
So yeah, because I enjoyed it, I obviously wanted to get up there, do the training. I mean, the Wednesday night wasn't compulsory, but I was one of the players that made sure I was there week in, week out, because I knew that it was going to develop me in the future. So I made sure that I was there. And my college was really good. They were a footballing college, so they were really good with me. So if I had to leave, say, 3 o'clock rather than 4 o'clock to be able to get to football on time, they were really good with that and really supported me in that.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of them things that sort of, it's not always common. I think of like other people we speak to, and they were saying like, there was no support and they were behind. I think of, even like Savella Toon, who was sort of probably at Blackburn similar time to, when I coached her, she was in high school, and it was like crazy because like the school could only do so much, and then she was trying to set exams, and it was like, trying to get somebody out there to wherever she was playing to sit the exams. And I think this is a big thing for me, something they don't sort of, maybe, I don't know what's the word, like promote and push to help out. Like for me, if there was more they could help on the educational side and balance that with the football, and there's a lot more support, it probably make players' lives a lot easier. So I think, having to sort of go through that as well, it's like, it's a credit that you can sort of come out and say, actually, I was able to do that and, improve yourself as a person and still get your footballing education. Obviously, you mentioned going out to America. But is there anything that sort of sticks out at Blackburn, like maybe a favourite memory or a favourite game or something, again, that you've maybe took away from that experience? It was maybe different to Man United.
It probably would be the trip to Dallas. Like, that is something that I've never experienced before. And if anybody got the opportunity to it, I'd say go and take it, like go and have a go. The football out there, especially the teams that we were playing teams, the physicality from some of the American girls is unbelievable. It's massive compared to us.
Yeah.
That was a big step up.
Gareth?
So then you moved to FC, in 2018. How did that move come about for you?
Blackburn. So I got offered to go and like have a game or sit on the bench with the first team, and like it was a big buzz for me. And then nothing really else came of it. And then the development side, I just felt like I just wanted something different. I wanted to try first team football, whether I had to drop a league or two. I wanted to try first team football. I wanted to see what it was all about. So I got in contact with FC and was like, "Can I come down for a trial?" And the first night I came, the biggest thing that attracted me to FC was the girls, because they were so welcoming. Like literally when I walked, it was like another little family. And that was the biggest thing for me for FC, just how welcoming it was when I first arrived.
Yeah, I suppose that links into something that I was going to talk about before, but we'll talk about it now. Sort of happiness in football and being at the right place, and at like a good club, I suppose it's massive. And obviously for like your development, like you mentioned there, even just dropping leagues, would you say that's like the main thing, or maybe something you advise people to do? Obviously, if they have maybe, change clubs or they're looking to find a new club, would you say obviously like the right club and being happy is like absolutely massive?
Definitely, because I think it's brought me on so much more as a player, being at a club that like I enjoy, and all the girls are lovely. Like we don't have any cliques in the team. Like we all get on. Like it's hard to get that, but that is what FC creates. Its environment like that, and I think definitely.
Yeah, I think like you say, it's one of them, because I know sometimes, like again, people I've spoke to said, oh, they've stayed at a club just because of the club, and it's like you kind of holding yourself back in a way because they've been sat on the bench or they've been still in the development team, and you think like, what benefit are you sort of doing yourself? I know that may sound like harsh to some, but at the end of the day, you're not developing as a player if you just sat around. So I think, like you say, it's like a credit to yourself really for sort of, thinking, right, I'm going to just go where I'm happy and go where the environment's right. And I think, if things are sort of there in football, it's a lot easier, isn't it? Like you know then that you're set, and it's a lot easier to perform, I'd imagine, on the pitch than, you know, if you were sort of unhappy and, you know, not really in games.
It built my confidence as well, like having players at the side of me rather than them shouting at me, encouraging me, like, just do this next time. And obviously I'm one of the youngest at FC still, and I still look up to the older players like Chelsea, Kirsty, and the amount that they push on the younger players, I just think it's amazing.
Yeah. Gareth, do you want to sort of touch a bit more on FC?
Yeah, I'm just kind of really interested. Obviously, you've been there throughout like the entire pandemic as well, and a lot has changed in that time. When we spoke to Kirsty and Jordan a few months ago, they kind of mentioned how tough that time was, but how much like the group kept each other going. How did you find that time sort of for you personally?
I really struggled through the lockdown. Luckily, I still had work because I'm classed as a key worker because I work in a school. So I was still working through it, but I had to drop my days to 3 days. And for me, being out of a routine, like, it really knocks me. So I really struggled. My mum got quite poorly, and then my dad got COVID. So I was like isolating with them. And it was a lot of pressure on myself. But football was, I know I couldn't go obviously because of COVID, but just the chat was always open. Like if we needed to talk, it was always there. Or I know if I gave Kirsty a ring, she'd be there to talk to. And it was like that with all of the players. And then when COVID started to get a little bit better and we were able to go out in like groups of 6 and stuff like that, we were meeting up and going for walks, which helped us. I think it helped all of the players, definitely.
Yeah, I suppose it's the uncertainty as well, because again, like sort of Gareth was saying, when we spoke to them, it was sort of not knowing. And, you know, I think at one point Kirsty did say, like, you didn't even know if you were coming back. You know, you told the manager was leaving, and it was kind of like left to James and obviously everybody to hold it back. So obviously, bearing in mind, like I said, you had a tough time with COVID. How was it then when you got back? Because obviously, like I say, that uncertainty must have been a little bit sort of like, oh, what's happening here? We've just come back now. What's going to happen to the team? How was that then?
It was really difficult. Obviously, manager leaving, James saying he's going to step up. All the girls had to step up then because we've got no manager. We needed to work towards something. We needed to work towards getting a manager in. I'm a confidence player, so for me, I was like, oh no, new manager's going to come in. I'm probably going to get dropped. Like, oh no. But we all worked hard, like, and look where we are now.
I know. Yeah, it's worked well actually, because it's interesting. Obviously, you know, I'll let Gareth talk a little bit on Tom in a sec, but like you say, I think that uncertainty, and we did say at the time, you know, we had James on the show and we said it's a credit to, you know, obviously him and yourselves as well for sticking it out, because I think now, like you say, look what you've got, and obviously we'll get on to sort of, like I say, Tom and sort of the one club ethos, but I think, you know, to battle through that, it probably builds you as a person and as a team as well, like you say, with the group chat being open. You know, you can chat, and obviously those people that are, you know, even new to the team or things like that, you know, you can really sort of bond as well over that, even if, like you say, you know, you're not necessarily kicking a ball or you're kicking a ball in small groups. It must be a big help. Gareth, I'll sort of let you jump onto Tom if you want.
Yeah, so obviously last season, season got curtailed early, and you got awarded sort of promotion up into the 4th tier. And first of all, how did that come about? Like, when did you find out that you were going to be promoted? Had you already started preparing for this season, and how did that affect pre-season?
So we were always preparing for it. Even when James stepped up, we were preparing for it because that's something that we were working towards. When Cam was the manager, it's something that we've always been working towards. And then obviously it came, and I mean, you can imagine all the girls, like, it was massive for us all. But then we knew that it was time to then get down to the gritty stuff and really work hard for what we were going into.
And what impact did Tom coming in have? Like, how have things changed since last season? Now Tom's here.
So we were only training once a week on a Wednesday night. Now we're training twice a week, which is a massive difference for the girls. Obviously, working together. I mean, Tom changed quite a lot when he came in, but he's listened to the girls as well. He's listened to what they wanted, and he's adapted as well, which I think's good.
And obviously, you are training twice a week now, so that's kind of double the amount of training time you've got. You're also training with the men as well, kind of at the same time. So how has that one club ethos kind of impacted on the whole team as well, and in your sort of own sort of development as well?
Yeah, I think for the whole team, like obviously with the men training on the opposite side, it gives everyone a boost. Like, you want to show them what we are capable of, and I know we're in training, but that's what we want to do. We want to show them what we are capable of, because that's how it should be. And you see them walking off the pitch, and they're all looking over, watching our session, because we're still going. They train till 8. We're training till 9, and that's how it is.
Yeah. Would you say that's probably helped then in terms of this season, like the transition obviously between tier 4 and tier 5? Obviously, you've upped training to twice a week, and I know from speaking to James the other day, he was sort of showing us the video analysis, which we'll sort of get into shortly. But obviously, training twice a week, I'm assuming that's, again, sort of working wonders and massively helps, because you can sort of spend more time preparing and things like that, and working on things that you want to.
Yeah, definitely. And like your fitness and everything is just improving. So yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of video analysis then, I'm not sure if that's something that's sort of common in tier 4. It's something that I've not really known. How do you find that then? Because sort of James was explaining about, like, sometimes you'll clip little bits and you'll sort of watch it in like WhatsApp groups, for example. Does that help you in terms of like your own games? It's sort of, it's great somebody giving you feedback verbally, but obviously being able to see something as well, I'm assuming that's like quite a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for me, because as you know, like I am now a right back, right wing back. I've never been that. I've always been a right centre, like forward, like. So it's a massive change for me for my position. So if I'm in the wrong position and I'm not understanding what they're saying verbally, then they can get it out and be like, well, this is where you need to be. And if you hear, this is how it'll change this. And
yeah,
it makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
That was something that James mentioned as well, was kind of wanting to be able to have that kind of bank of knowledge to be able to say, right, if you're playing this position, this is where you need to be, and this is what you need to be able to do. How different are Tom and James? Obviously, they seem to complement each other really, really well. But how is it kind of working with the pair of them, and what are their own kind of individual things that they bring to the side?
Well, that's a difficult one. I don't even know how to start that off.
Start with James if you want, because obviously he was sort of telling us like he had to, what's the word? I don't know, like up his communication, because he was obviously planning stuff in between Tom arriving and recruiting somebody. But obviously, we've seen him take warm-ups and things, but is there anything like specific, like maybe that James does that maybe Tom doesn't, something like that perhaps, and you think, oh, actually I like that, or it's good that James is doing this because he's like excelling in that, so to speak?
Yeah, James and his fitness side of things, and he just absolutely beasts us. Like, I mean, when Tom's not there, James is like, right, we're doing this, and by the end of it, we're all absolutely blowing. But that's what we need. And then Tom with the tactical side of things, so your positioning, stuff like that, and yeah.
I think as well though, Tom coming in, because obviously we knew Tom. He was at Man United development team in our first season, and sort of coming from that level, it was something that James, when he spoke to us, he was saying, like, it's good because James learns off Tom, but Tom also learns off James. And I think, what people see is like, this sort of, I think they call it a little bromance, and they sort of, they use that term. And I suppose it's correct really, but it must be nice though, because obviously they bounce off each other. And I suppose, somebody coming in with like Tom's quality, that he's been there, he's worked in the women's game for like 11 years, that must be, like I say again, for you lot, just like an absolute dream. Do anything you want to add to that sort of about that then, and sort of, how you found it maybe compared to previous sort of seasons coming in, like I say, with Tom's knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a bit nerve-wracking at the start when they were both coming in together, because we were thinking, oh, are they going to work? Are they not? And but it was just relieving for all the girls to see that they just hit off together and like they bounce off each other, as you're saying. So yeah, I just think it was mega for the team. Tom coming in with his experience, and James, obviously what James did keeping the team going when we didn't have a manager. Like, I respect him so much for that, because we might not be here now if James didn't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
One difference as well between this season and last season, like a massive one, is playing like inside the stadium. So last season and pre-season as well, kind of out on the 3G at the side. How's that?
Yeah, last season we were always promised like, oh, it's going to happen, and it didn't often happen, maybe every now and then. And then obviously when Tom came in and James and this one club came in, it was one of the first things that they said that needed sorting. Like, the women should be in the stadium. The women should be having exactly what the men have. Like, we should get the support. So that was massive. And obviously the atmosphere in the stadium is completely different with being out on the 3G.
Yeah. Go on, Gareth.
Does it make a difference as well? Like this, obviously playing on 3G to playing on grass is completely different. So, you know, it's got to be one of the best stadiums by far in the division that you're in. So do you think it kind of gives you an advantage playing at home that maybe, you know, certain sides that are playing on 3G or sort of smaller places don't necessarily have?
Yeah, definitely. I do think it gives us a massive bonus, and yeah, definitely.
I think what I like about that is I always love when I sit there and you see the opposition walking in, they're all like this with the phones and the video cameras, and it's just, I can understand why, but it's quite funny because as players you must think, God, we've got the advantage here, because to me that sort of says, you know, they're more bothered about the stadium and the surroundings, which is fair enough. You know, it's nice, but it's just I'd be looking at that thinking, right, well, these are only here for the occasion, and I think that probably helps you as well in terms of that. But sort of you were talking about one club then, and obviously this is something that, you know, Tom's really pushed. It has been sort of, you know, even like chatting to us and saying, how do you sort of find that then? Because you know, sort of, and we'll talk about sort of growing the game shortly, but I'm assuming that's good for you, because it's not only like the training that's doubled up and sharing the ground, but Tom was saying like things like events as well, like, you know, club events, and it's really inclusive, which again can be rare at clubs. Do you want to talk to me a little bit about that then, and sort of how you find that and how it helps?
Yeah, so like the Christmas do that got rearranged, that was men and women and then fans. Like, I just think it's massive that we are all one club and that we all stick together. I think it is absolutely massive. Yeah,
absolutely.
And before we move on to kind of like talking about the perceptions of the game, are there any, obviously, you know, goal for the club as well for this season, next season, and anything sort of any personal goals that you've got as well, again, for this season and kind of moving on to next season as well?
For myself, I just want to become more confident. I need to become more confident in myself as a player, and yeah, confident in positioning, because obviously now being a right back, like, it's a lot to take on. You're the last player. If someone gets past you, then there's only Chloe to beat. And I mean, as good as Chloe is, it can't always be.
Chloe's like a brick wall, but yeah.
No, it can't always be left to her though.
No, that's it. How did you find that then? Because obviously, I can imagine, you know, like Tom's quite attacking with his fullback, so I can imagine I mean, I've played fullback, and my getting up and down was woeful. But like, how have you found? Because obviously, attacking, being on the right, is completely different because you're not always required to defend. But how have you found it constantly going up and down? How's that been in sort of like, you know, like say learning to transition, so to speak?
Yeah, it's tiring, and I get caught out sometimes. So like, I've gone too far up and then I can't recover in time. Like, it's a learning. Every single game I'm learning something new, which I love. And in training as well, like, I'm always learning something new and something how I can improve my game. Yeah,
I think that's good though, because it's probably, like I say, done you know, a favour becoming so versatile, because obviously this season, as you know, it's just been horrific injury rise like crazy, and people have sort of been all over. So to be fair, it probably helps you, like you say, you know, if you're up,
Yeah.
down, or wherever.
I mean, I was playing centre back the other week, and
that's it.
that is not me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any particular game from this season that stands out as like being one of your favourite games? Like, not necessarily, an obvious one, but one that kind of stands out to you individually, and any kind of personal favourite goal as well, because I know you've got a couple.
Thinking off the top of my head,
I've got a couple in mind. Same game.
Go on then.
The FA Cup. Do you remember that? Was it BRNESC?
Yeah, that side from Liverpool.
Yeah,
that side from Liverpool. We'll go with that, Gareth. Yeah, a couple of absolute rockets there. They were my favourite. I'm going to put that out there. You might be different, but they're my personal highlights.
Yeah, that goal, I will probably say that. Even though a couple of the girls are saying, that was a cross, It wasn't. I did mean for it to go there.
Oh, should have told him. I used to play forward, so used to doing that. That would have shut a few of them up. But yeah, I think that game was just, it was good because although there's some quality goals scored as well, I think it really saw, like, Tom was saying to me about how he changed up and playing out from the back. And I think you could see that, it becomes evident as the weeks go on what you're trying to build. And I think, that's something that probably takes a bit of getting used to, because like I said, again, conversations with players, from previous season, they'd sort of said, there wasn't always a specific style, and Tom's sort of come in and changed it up, which again, it does, it looks good. I want to move on to perceptions then, and obviously, sort of building the women's game and sort of maybe changing some of them perceptions. In terms of, like, if you're a young player, then what advice would you maybe give? Because obviously now, like we touched on before, there's quite a lot of girls teams. What would be sort of maybe one or two things you'd say to sort of a young girl looking to get into football?
I think just say to enjoy it, definitely. You've just got to make sure that you enjoy it and believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, you can do anything. Yeah,
absolutely. Just want to, before I bring you in, Gareth, as well, obviously for growing it, we talk about like what FC are doing and sort of that one club thing, and obviously something that was, what I thought was brilliant as well, was a double header in pre-season. What are your thoughts then in terms of like growing it? I mean, obviously we like, getting fans in is one thing, but is there something maybe, I don't know, obviously, for example, we've got the Euros in summer, social media is more sort of out there now, but what do you think sort of those things, and if there's anything you'd add sort of personally, like your views in terms of growing it, or maybe what you'd like to see sort of in the future going forwards?
Obviously, like for myself, I think maybe getting it televised a bit more. I know you've got the WSL and stuff like that, but what about the lower league teams? Like, why can they not be up and be on the telly and see what's up and coming for the WSL and what girls are working towards?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one thing, like, especially like you say, even outside, well, even the Championship, to be fair, you've got the FA player, and it's like, why is there only one game a week? Why can't we show tier 3, 4, and 5? Why can't it go on YouTube or Facebook? And I think for me, it's sort of, it's probably harsh to say it's lacking, but it's the truth, because it's like, you've got, and we've had tons of conversations, like me, Gareth, and, people at FC, and we're saying, there's quality players in them leagues and they're not being showcased. And I think things like that, I don't know what you think, or if you want to jump in on this, Corie, but, things like that are going to be massive for growing it.
I think definitely like YouTube and Facebook, because how many people, I mean, I work in a school and a lot of my staff want to support me, but there's not really, the only thing that we have is the commentary on Twitter and stuff like that. We don't really have, like, they say I want to come and watch, but I can't get down to the game. I want to, is there a link that I can watch it on? And if there was something like that, I know most of them from my work will be on there watching it. So if that's just from my work, what about all the other girls on the team?
Yeah,
I think that's the key, isn't it? Is it being visible? You look at #United, and their women's team sort of same tier as you, but for the South, and their men's team are in the 8th tier. But like, their women are signing players from London City Lionesses, so dropping down from the Championship. And I think it's just because, like you say, there's visibility there. There's they live stream their games on YouTube, have monthly wrap ups. The men kind of super visible as well. So yeah, I think you're right. I just think that, if we can make those games visible, even if it is just YouTube or Facebook or some way of doing it, gradually people are going to get invested. Once people are invested, then they're going to be able to kind of get down to games. So yeah, I agree. I think you're right.
Yeah. What do you think then in terms of advertising, Corie? Like, do you think there's maybe ways, because obviously we see sort of Facebook and Twitter, which is great, but do you think maybe, I don't know, there's ways around that? Because I think, like, obviously I worked at a football club a few years back, and we were like in schools, like, you know, doing things and being visible. Do you reckon that maybe something, I mean, not necessarily at your level, you know, because obviously people work, but maybe higher up, for example, do you reckon that could be something where they maybe need to tap into it more, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I work in a school and there's not many girls in my school that play football.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will say to me when I'm out playing with the lads on the playground, like, "Oh, miss, what got you into that?" Well, just give it a go. Like,
Yeah.
And you might enjoy it. That's what I did. I gave it a go and enjoyed it. And I think if people got into schools and like female players got into schools and spoke to like young girls and things like that, I think it would change their perspective on things, and maybe they would go out and give it a go and maybe join in with the boys on the playground.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. I think it sort of comes down to word role models. Like, I think for me, you know, now it's good that there's so many sort of opportunities to watch the women's game, and I think it's very, very affordable. Like, this is one thing that, you know, I think people don't realize. Like, when I tell people you can go and watch a game for between like £3 and £10, they're shocked, and I'm like, no, listen, like, take your kids down. You know, if you've got young girls, young boys, it doesn't matter, because, you know, there's that many now sort of opportunities and visibility of sort of role models, whereas previously maybe wasn't. And I think, like you say, you know, getting into schools, getting into the community, you know, even just going for a kickabout, like you said before, you know, trying it, you know, I don't think there's any harm in somebody trying it and give it a go. You know, it doesn't matter whether you're any good at it, practice it. And if you love it, you can, you know, you can get better. Gareth, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just kind of jumping on that role models thing. I remember when I was at school, there was a rumor that one of the male PE teachers has had a trial at Port Vale, and we were obsessed, like, just because this guy had like, I don't even think it was true, but I think he wore a Port Vale tracksuit one day, and we just assumed that he had this trial. So, like, if you're there and like you are actually legitimately playing football for, you know, FC, then the girl's going to see that and see that, oh, you know, maybe it's not just a boys' sport, and that, you know, there are these opportunities available. But just, you know, you've mentioned that you work in a school, and I think both of us do as well. So know how just absolutely draining that is. How do you find balancing work with football, like getting home? And the last thing I want to do when I get home from work is do anything, like let alone go out and do fitness with James. Like, absolutely not. How do you find that?
It is difficult. Like, finishing at 4, I literally get home, get some food, and then it's straight off to training. Like, it is difficult, but like I said before, because I love it, and like that is why I do it. And football is something that keeps me going. So if I didn't have football, I think I'd come home and just be like, well, what can I do now? On the nights that I haven't got training, I've ended up getting myself an extra job so that I'm keeping myself busy.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? Like, I just think, like you say, it's just, it becomes life. Like, literally, like, obviously you were saying like lockdown was difficult, like even for us as well. Like, you couldn't go into games and you were trying to watch it, and it's like one of the worst things, because like you say, you just sat there and you're kind of twiddling your thumbs and thinking like, God, what's next? But I think another thing what I like as well, and I'll let you talk on this, is like after a game, I think it's so like welcoming, like, you know, everybody sort of comes over and you can have a chat and things as well. How does that make you feel as a player? Because obviously we're talking about sort of getting people involved in that, and it must be good for you seeing, like, you know, young children coming up, and even, you know, parents saying, you know, I've really enjoyed it, or, you know, enjoyed watching you and things like that. But how do you find it from your point of view? Is it like strange, or is it something that you love because you're inspiring people?
No, I love it because we're inspiring people. And a big thing for me, like, I love it at the end of a game when we go up to the function room and we're having our refreshments after the game, and like the fans are up there. That's a time for us to all be involved and like bond with the fans.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you notice it as well, and especially, like I say, FC, because everybody sort of, you know, the word that's bandied about a lot is family. And, you know, like for me and Gareth, obviously we came across when Tom was like, oh, come down. And we came down sort of pre-season and we're new to it. And I think you get that feel because, you know, even from, I think it was July, like the first pre-season game, you know, you get to know everybody. Like it's, you know, staff that work in like the office, the football side. And I think that's what's nice, you know, like, because like you say, you got that family sort of ethos and things like that. And obviously the bar being open's a bonus. I bet Tom's bored of me asking, Tom, get that bar open. Tom, what's going on with this bar? And fair play to him now. He's like, I've sorted it every week now. I was like, perfect, because
it's been sorted now.
Yeah, it's just the experience of it. Like, I know that probably sounds bad, but even just from a social thing, like, people don't even need to drink. Do you know what I mean? You can just go up there, have a chat, and crack on. Gareth, I'm gonna pass to you. And
I mean, I'm just reiterate kind of what you said. Like my mates at work absolutely rip into me. Like, how many teams do you follow? Like, because like last season it was kind of Leicester and kind of that family element there and the social side of things. And this season, obviously FC as well, probably more so actually than Leicester. And I'm like, how many teams from like you just don't get it. Like, that is what at the moment, you know, the thing about women's football is it is like you say, much more of a family and a cohesive thing where, you know, you just don't kind of get that sense of community and belonging necessarily with attending men's games, and obviously naturally so. Like, there's no way that you can do when there's 8,000 people in the stadium or whatever. But I just, you know, agree kind of with what you've said, where it is, you know, one massive family, and like you say, having it's not even just necessarily the fact that it's the bar, it's somewhere just to socialize and have that opportunity to kind of get together and have conversations and things.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we finish then, Corie, I'm going to do a little bit of a quick fire sort of question thing that Gareth very kindly put together. Let me just find it. Where have we gone?
So you're putting me on the spot now.
He's putting you on the spot. I mean, we call it quick fire, but it doesn't have to be. It's kind of similar to the Lionesses teammates thing. So we've got first question: funniest person on the team.
Oh, it's Kaylee and Eve.
I can see why. I'm not going to expand on that, but I can see why. Absolutely. This one's going to be great. Best dressed or best fashion sense? And then we'll go on to worst.
That's a difficult one. That I think we're all quite
well dressed.
Yeah.
Is there anybody? What about staff wise? Is there anybody that's like shocking? Like somebody rocks up in a dodgy shirt and you think, what on earth is that? Or are they all quiet?
No, I wouldn't say this season there is now.
Just last year, a couple of questionable choices.
Not this season.
This one's interesting because this brought a lot of debate when we had Kirsty and Jordan on it, actually, about music. Who's got the best music taste?
Well, Kate will seem to think it's her, but her music before going out to a game just puts you into a bag of nerves, like no words. Bang, 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 bang. So then there's like me and Marcia that are like, oh, can we have some words? Can we have some different music?
That is exactly what Jordan and Kirsty said as well.
Yeah. It literally, because we had it. I think it was Anya. Anya said it was absolutely dreadful. And she was like, oh, yeah, they've got the worst music taste going. And it was quite, I had to ask that one because it was something that's been, you know, it's been making us laugh for months on end, literally.
Yeah. Well, it's still
next one.
We're always
here we go. Final one. Most skillful on the team. Who do you reckon?
Ellie Rigby.
Yeah.
I mean, her feet. In training, she just runs rings around us all.
Yeah. You know what? It's mad as well. And for her age as well, just to showcase what she does, it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Got to the end of the show then, Corie. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to you, Gareth, as well. This will go out, obviously, because we're pre-recording this. This will go out Tuesday. Wednesday, John's back tomorrow. He's got a referee with him, talking about referees in the game. So, join him tomorrow. And thank you very much.
Thanks very much.